Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I'm very glad to have you here. I'm glad we're all here. We're holding on. We're holding steady. So much is happening day by day by day. We're watching events unfold in real time that are both alarming, but there is also, a lot of reasons to hold out hope and feel motivated and inspired by people really working to keep the wheels of democracy in motion, right? Again, if you are new to the channel, let me back up a little bit. If you're just landing here, I am a Fefe with Touch by Tarot and Beyond. I am a oracle and tarot reader. Clearly got the deck in my hand, but I'm also a former newspaper journalist, so I kind of have a foot in both worlds. I try to stay really grounded, do my research, stay on top of what's happening, and then I go to spirit on different topics and try and get more context and more insight into what's really going on and what's likely to happen as events unfold and energies shift, right? And I'm also an initiated priestess in both Wiccan and African traditions. So I try to bring, got a lot on my plate, a lot of experience in different realms, and I try to use all of that to give you good content. I appreciate your time, your energy. You all, there's so many. I love the comments. I love your intelligence, your passion. I understand your anger and frustration, and for many of you, fear, all of that. I want this channel to serve as a community, as do many other platforms in the spiritual realm, spiritual slash political realm here on YouTube. So, we need each other and we are stronger together. That said, let's go into a couple of things, you all. Okay, Newsom's speech. Made a speech to the nation last night. Very, very interesting. As many questions as we may have around Gavin Newsom and some of the moves that he's made in recent months. And his him being a real political operator. We'll put it that way. At the end of the day, I think he's, what I'm getting from the guides and what I personally feel, he's doing his job. He is doing his job as the governor of the state of California. And, to the extent that clearly he will use that to his advantage to launch a campaign for president in 2028. Duh. That's how business is done here in these United States of America that we're trying to keep united. So that's understandable. But here's the thing. I also am getting from spirit, now we understand that the next thing in line is more blue cities, the ice raids that are about to take place, already underway, but gonna be really, full force in, I wrote them down. So New York, Seattle, Chicago, Philly, and they're saying Northern Virginia, but I'm hearing a lot around that, meaning more around Alexandria, perhaps. Okay, so of those, we're looking at the mayors, of course, who are going to have to get involved, as Mayor Bass has in LA, had to implement a curfew. We understand there were many, many arrests by the LAPD, right? To the extent that those arrests were necessary, if they were necessary. Oof, I have to grind my teeth while saying that. But the bottom line is allowing local and state law enforcement to handle these issues versus what we see being played out with, deploying the Marines and the National Guard in numbers that are completely unwarranted. That will that be replicated in these other blue cities? I want to go to spirit and take a look at that and see what we can expect, or if we've been hearing a lot about LA being the experiment, right? The first experiment to for FDT and his administration. Mainly, we all know this is all pointing back to Stephen Miller. He's the one. He's the one driving the car. All right, so but this being LA being an experiment to then see how they could continue to implement these raids within these other blue cities. All right. So, something just fell out. Let's see what it was. I'm gonna pay attention to it. Ace of Pentacles. If you read with me and hang out with me on the channel, you know that when I get aces, I know that my spirit guides are with me and they're speaking and they're saying, I'm on the right track with things. So Ace of Pentacles. This is, yeah, let's get into it. Because these blue cities, we've got Eric Adams, who is in New York, who has already come out and said, listen, we have a relationship, White House. We've been through some things together. You all looked out after me. There's no need, we've got this handled in New York. You don't have to send the troops in here. I'm your boy, and I'm going to do the right thing to assist ICE in any way necessary. So that's Eric Adams' stance. Kathy Hochul, governor. Okay, moving right along. She has not proven herself to be particularly effective, outspoken, willing to stand out in any way, been very, very hesitant. But two of those cities that we're hearing about, and this is where I'm thinking about Newsom, Spirit is saying, pay attention to J.B. Pritzker, Illinois, because of Chicago, and pay attention to Josh Shapiro, raids in Philly, Pennsylvania, right? Because those two, in addition to Gavin Newsom, in addition to Newsom, those two, Pritzker and Shapiro, are very likely going to be candidates in 2028 as well. So this is a moment for them as well. That's what we're going to take a look at first and foremost. Spirit, of these blue cities that are being targeted, well, first of all, will we see a deployment of the National Guard and armed forces in the way that we're seeing the White House implement this in LA? Will there be a repeat of that in these blue cities that are being targeted this week? We have temperance. Ooh, and the Hierophant comes right behind it. That's the government. So when I shuffled you all at the bottom of the deck, I just got temperance and the Hierophant. When I see the Hierophant in a context like this, I look at the government structure in general. This is the White House. This is the government. This is the administration. But temperance is moderation. I think there's going to be a pullback. Not like pull back. We know what we're dealing with. But temperance is, again, it is a card of moderation. It is a card of working out things, trying to work out things when you have two very, very different approaches or different entities. In this case, you've got blue cities, Democratic governors, and then you've got this administration, right? So that's what's happening there with the Hierophant representing the administration. It is costing, I just heard, the Spirit is reminding me, remember you all, it is costing, none of this is free. It is costing a lot of taxpayer dollars for the administration to do what they're doing. In fact, while I'm at it, Spirit's reminding me, there's been a lot of talk about the cost of this parade on Saturday for his birthday. Supposed to be celebrating 250 years of the Army, really an excuse for him to celebrate his birthday. And I know that's offensive to many veterans. I respect that, but I don't think anyone would argue he's capitalizing off of that and really making this about him. But that said, there is also this idea that, how much is this costing? Like, we're hearing $25 to $50 million. Meanwhile, we're hearing estimates of $134 million being spent to deploy the Marines and 4,000, I think that's the number, 4,000 National Guard, who, from also what we're understanding, nowhere to house them. Food and water, questionable. I've seen pictures online. These days we got to check and double check and triple check whether something's real or been photoshopped. But Newsom put out some images of these federal buildings, National Guard troops laying on floors, in these federal buildings, like no real accommodations for them, but still costing gangs of money to mobilize. And so $134 million to send 4,000 National Guard, 700 Marines, but you've got 6,000 troops, tanks, air shows, blah, blah, blah going on in DC for 25 mil. Is that mathing? All right, you all. Back to our blue cities. Will we see Spirit, will the administration pull back on that? Will they, find a reason to say it's not necessary? Two of Swords is that feels like you're gonna have Holman et al. Of course, FDT being their mouthpiece, basically justice. So a lot of continued bullying and threats around, if you don't do it, we will. We're on alert. We will. You've seen what we've done in LA. We will not hesitate to send in the guard there. We will not hesitate to do it. FDT was asked yesterday, how long are you going to leave the National Guard and the Marines there? And he's like, until we have peace. So, you've got them there. This whole staged thing in Fort Bragg, again, Spirit said in my last reading, Spirit said a lot of this was being done to prep and justify what's going to be this parade on Saturday, and positioning FDT more and more as this, commander-in-chief of the armed forces. There's the Knight of Discs. Now, knights are mobilization. Knights are movement. Is this smaller numbers or to a smaller extent? Ten of Swords. They don't. No, because all of this is costing money, you all. They're worried about that, and they're worried about when will people not just, you've still got folks in the red states sitting back, eating popcorn, clapping their hands, watching what's happening in LA. But this is, at a certain point, they realize, wait a minute, this is not necessary. This is wasting money. This is posturing. So that Knight of Discs feels like it's movement, but it slows down the movement. And I got my Ace of Wands, Spirit confirming. All right. So I all that's to say, I think what we're getting from Spirit is we're not going to see a repeat of what we are witnessing happening in LA. That said, I want to pick up these cards and reshuffle. I want to take a look at what, in particular, I'm being pinged by Pritzker and Shapiro, because I know that they are both very strong voices within the Democratic Party, clearly, and because they have both aspirations, presidential aspirations, as does Gavin Newsom. I want to look at Spirit, J.B. Pritzker, and Josh Shapiro. How are they going to handle what they know is coming? What they know is coming. And how will they be threatened, and will it be the same vitriol that we see the White House FDT threatening Newsom? Pritzker, King of Pentacles, the billionaire that he is. What is the Hyatt fortune? So he's sitting there waiting for it, ready for it. And the Ten of Cups. A lot of protection for his end. He is truly fearless. And this is about the King of Pentacles as an archetype in tarot is about an energy that knows how to protect and stabilize and keep secure the people, the property, the what it takes to mobilize to protect the people. I'm not so sure he wants to take on Pritzker. Mouth, and Stephen Miller in the background like a chihuahua, with rabies for entertainment purposes only, please God. For entertainment purposes only, so that will not stop. We know that. We've already come to expect it. And I get the Ace of Wands again. You all saw me, or at least heard me shuffle, right? Ace of Wands. So Pritzker is prepared. He's watching very carefully what this is. He's already putting things in place to be prepared to handle this. to handle ICE coming in? Will there be curfews? Will Pritzker follow? Oh no, that wouldn't be done by him. That would be done by the Chicago mayor, who I'm sorry, I don't know that name offhand. But that would be done. The Hierophant. Expect more curfews. And I feel like this is sort of across the board. This could be in some of those other cities as well. What did I say? Seattle, Philly, and perhaps Alexandria, Virginia, as well as Chicago. So we're going to see state and local leaders in the cities probably implement curfews sooner rather than later to prevent. Because the idea, thank you, Spirit. The idea, and Spirit's like, duh. Because the idea is to prevent a replication of what we see happening in LA. And so if they get out in front of it, okay, we know these raids are happening. We know that there are going to be protests, and people have a constitutional right to protest. However, since so much of this has been deemed to make a turn at night in terms of, any type of vandalism, etc., we'll go ahead and implement curfews to alleviate, the potential for any of that. Spirit, Josh Shapiro, Seven of Discs. So Josh Shapiro is in planning mode with whoever. And again, I'm sorry, I should have taken the time before I taped. I apologize. I should have looked up these mayors' names, but because it will everything just as we see Mayor Bass and Newsom, coordinating and being governing leaders in that state. You're going to see a similar thing happening in these other blue cities with governors and mayors. Josh Shapiro, Ace of Swords comes out. Very, yeah, Josh is nothing to play with. And we know that. We've watched him work before. We certainly saw him in response to what was done to his governor's mansion. He's ready. Razor sharp. Razor, like, already putting things in place. Already learning from what's happening. And there's the Hermit. Ready to say, we got this. The Hermit, as many of you know, if you read tarot, is an energy in and of itself. It is ruled by Virgo. It knows how to handle its business. It is very much, I got this. I don't need you. I don't need you to come in and interfere. So, but in order to, because Newsom said this very same thing, and he just steamrolled right on in. But if these measures are already in place, then again, to the extent that the administration really, really tips all the way into illegality for entertainment purposes only again, and spirit, it's my spirit speaking. Woo! Gotta do that. Wow. But that Hermit is saying, between the Hermit and the Ace of Swords, you're going to see measures that will be taken as these raids continue in these blue cities. You will see measures that will be taken preemptively to say, what are you doing? We already handled that. This was already done, whether it's a curfew, and then there's the Page of Cups, Spirit, will we see more children or an emphasis on young people who are being impacted by this? We most certainly will. Here comes temperance to come back. Increasingly, especially with these raids in the blue cities and this blanket, more and more that Stephen Miller and FDT are saying, keep it going, keep the momentum going, don't stop now, don't let your foot up off the gas. But this temperance with this Page of Cups, we are going to see more coverage, as we did with those journalists, the woman from Australia, I believe, and I forget where the gentleman was from, but that were hit by those rubber bullets. There's two faces to this, and while what I'm getting from Spirit is, while certain parts of the media, certainly right wing media, is eager to keep doing flashes of a cop car on fire. But we were also going to see in these blue cities more coverage of people, family, and those who are those like visual images and audio of people who are being torn apart by this, so that the American public at large, the story that the administration is putting forth that justifies the use of military force, there's going to be a counter, more of a counter to that between Temperance and the Page of Cups, because you're going to see a lot of children and focus on children being torn out of mother's arms. I've already seen some things along those lines on social media. Perhaps you have as well. That's also a part of what these Democratic cities are going to be doing. These blue cities are going to do is say, we've got to get out. It is too much. This is the we already know ICE was understaffed, and they in turn went out and said, okay, we're just going to start deputizing people. We have the right to do that. So they are amping up their forces, but it is too much. It is bigger than what they are capable and prepared to do in any sort of systemic, logical, or certainly legal way. So yeah, this will, and then there's a death. There's an ending and a transformation in terms of how these raids play out. And how also, Spirit just reminded me, some of these detention centers within states have said they will no longer contract with ICE. I can't remember, there was one in particular that pulled its contract. And I want to say Glendale, California, check me on that. But if I'm not mistaken, Glendale, California already said, don't bring them here anymore. Your contract with us is canceled. So that's going to be another thing, is having these places of detention at the ready. Not going to happen. You're going to have more contracts pulled, which then puts further pressure on them. Okay, if we detain them, where do we house them? Where do we put immigrants who are being detained, right? So this whole thing is snowballing, and the inefficiency, the inefficacy, the costs are going to continue to mount, remembering as well that part of all of this has been about saving the taxpayers' money, making, putting more money in people's pockets, less government spending. Okay. All right. The other thing on a good note I want to take a quick look at is, many of you, I know, as I've been on here and many other readers have been on here talking about 2026 midterms, more and more media outlets, major media has been talking about 2026 midterms as, when things will turn around if the Dems can retake the House. And a lot of you have been justifiably pissed off about that. Like, we barely halfway into 2025. Why do we have to wait, another year plus before we see something shift? 2025, November of this year, we do have two government races coming up in New Jersey and Virginia. Many of you, I'm sure, heard that in New Jersey, the only female Democratic candidate for governor, the representative Mickey Sherrill, she went in the freshman class with AOC. So I think she's been in, I think this is like her fourth term. She's got quite a bit of experience under her belt now as a Democratic representative in Congress. She beat out 5 guys, including Ross Baraka, who I understand was a pretty strong second. But she came out ahead in the primary, and she's going to be running against, what's this guy's name? I didn't want to let it register. Jack Ciattarelli, who FDT, of course, FDT et al. Is already lining up to try and take over, because, Jersey is a blue state, has, historically been a blue state. The numbers supposedly narrowed between 2020 and 2024. Kamala Harris carried the state, but apparently, only, I think I heard, by 6 points. versus Biden carrying it by something like 16-ish points in 2020. So the gap was narrowing. We keep hearing about blue states increasingly, moving more conservative. All that said, I am feeling for those of us, you need to see in a matter of months something that happens for the Democratic Party that shows, where the temperature check for democracy in America. Every race in every state is going to be worth paying attention to. I want to take a quick look at her. Spirit, Mickey Sherrill, going into the Jersey, for Jersey governor against her Republican opponent. And I'm going to just, even though the time, we'll look at it again. We know that things shift. But right now, I feel like Spirit is saying that's a real shot in the arm that people, Democrats and even independents and others who are looking to see if democracy is going to hold in the United States, like this governor's race is going to be really, really globally watched, is what I'm hearing. And I want to take a look at Mickey Sherrill. Page of Wands, that momentum, fresh. A woman at that. That's another thing. Again, she beat out a five. I guess it was 5 total. So she beat out four men. And this is not an easy time right now. And here's Judgment. Wow, a lot of eyes opened. She is former Navy pilot for like 10 years. I think she was in Navy pilot. Former prosecutor, right? But I'm not sure, federal prosecutor. I hope I'm right. I hope that not state, but former prosecutor. Like the woman's got some stuff going on. Now, I did hear that there are going to be some questions raised around, she supposedly, like many people in Congress, has done some stock trading, right? And made some money, in stock trading. And that is a no-no. But come on, like so much of that, come on. Let's not even talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene. Right? The day of or the day before, he started talking about liberation with the tariffs, and all of a sudden, But we also know, as long as we've got, Pam Bondi and crew in charge, that they're not going to try and prosecute them. But, look what they do on the other end. All right. Mickey Sherrill, 2 of Cups. This is going to be, a lot will be riding on who she chooses as her running mate for lieutenant governor. Spirit, will she choose Ross Baraka? Will Ross Baraka be her running mate? 2 of Wands. It's under consideration. Some talks are going to be had, y'all. 2 of Wands. So it might be. We might be looking at a Mickey Sherrill, Ross Baraka ticket. Spirit. The Magician. Okay. Let's keep our eyes peeled on that. Not saying it's a done deal, but it's under consideration for sure. All right. National recognition, a lot of democratic sentiment around what was done with Ross Baraka. So wrong what we're seeing done with LaMonica MacGyver with the indictment, and Alina Habba, carrying on. Now, this is in New Jersey. Mickey Sherrill's going to have to, Spirit, will Mickey Sherrill come out around that? Will she express support for LaMonica MacGyver, who is facing these charges in reference to that visit to the detention center? Will Mickey Sherrill support LaMonica MacGyver? 10 of Cups. I like it. Page of Cups. Being careful about it. She's got to be careful about it. But at the end of the day, everybody saw the video. And here comes the Magician again. Y'all saw me or heard me shuffle, right? Here comes the Magician again. And that is ruled by Mercury. What is spoken with an intent to manifest. I do think we're going to hear, and because again, remember part of Cheryl's background is as a prosecutor. I do think, I'm not saying she's going to be like, take this on as a cause, take MacGyver's case on as a cause, but to the extent that she certainly will be questioned about it if she hasn't been already. And she will speak to her right to be there as a congressperson. She's also though going to be really careful about the extent to which and the time that she spends on it. And I feel like the Seven of Cups also is going to be because we know Ross Baraka as well. We can expect to hear his support for her. So all of these Democratic players are going to have to. They will absolutely support MacGyver through this. And I'm not getting that. I get that this is only going to be so far, go so far, that the plan is to try and oust her from Congress. It isn't about trying to throw her in jail. It's really about trying to damage her politically. MacGyver, I'm talking about. She is a new freshman congressperson, from what I understand. And so they're just trying to get her out before she can really even get started. Because imagine, should she remain in office and come through all of this victorious, her political cachet goes up, 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 right? So that's what this game plan is about. I think MacGyver, I'll look at her later because I'm running long on my tape. We will look more into her, but keep your eyes on Jersey. Virginia has another race, and I'm not too familiar with that, so I'll do that on another taping later. But keep your eyes. You don't have to wait until 2026 to see some momentum within the Democratic Party and the structure. There's going to be, New Jersey. All our eyes are going to be on Jersey, and I think they're going to hold. But again, we got some time between now and November. We'll take a look. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your energy. Stay strong, you all. Keep your faith. Keep the faith, as we've said for many, many decades in political and spiritual context, right? And keep our chin up. I always close with that. Keep your chin up. Know who you are. Know your values. Know what you stand for. Know that source is a whole lot bigger and more powerful than anything in any government structure that we see going on right now. And while we're all lawful and we want to be lawful and we want to obey the Constitution and see the Constitution hold, we do have a connection to a higher source, and that is every reason to keep our chins high, our shoulders back, and by all means remember to breathe. Okay, I'll talk to you real soon. I appreciate you. Bye.